Welcome to Noble Warrior. My name is CK Lin. This is where I interview masters about their journey to master the mind and body and spirit to have greater performance, greater joy, and greater purpose in life and business. My next guest is a remarkable innovator and a humanitarian dedicated to reshaping the world for the better. He has incubated and invested in more than 50 groundbreaking technology companies. He is being a driving force behind the collaborative platforms for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and climate change agenda. He's on a mission to address the root cause of human suffering, mental health, by democratizing access to personalized sound medicine. Please welcome Andy Russell.
So nice to be here. Thank you.
Beautiful. So Andy, you and I, we met through another Noble Warrior podcast guest, Jan. And when we first got on the phone to have a conversation, you asked me a really interesting question right away. You said, where do you find purpose?
Yes.
And then it was a beautiful question because there was very little, how's the weather, where you're from, what do you do? It's just like, where do you find purpose? So I love that. Can you say a little bit about how do you find purpose?
Sure. So, I'm 52. In the world that we live in, you might say I've accomplished a lot of stuff. And, where do you go from there? And to me, I have an 18-year-old daughter, I have a 6-year-old son. And I also know that there are a lot of 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds and 14-year-olds out there. There are lots of people across the planet who are suffering and suffering greatly right in this very moment. So to me, my purpose, and whether I chose it or it chose me, is to help reduce suffering in the world. We live in a time that's quite remarkable. Humanity has evolved through technology and our own adaptiveness to pretty much have everything we could possibly need, from energy to food to shelter to connectivity for education. And now we have AI, which, if it goes the right direction, would mean we can have robots doing a lot of the work we don't want to do. It's like ta-da, we made it. Yet, we're heading in a direction, as we can see in the world today, of so much violence, so much hate, so much fear, which causes physical harm, but also causes so much mental harm. And if we came together collaboratively around compassion and love and forgiveness, we could just reduce so much suffering. So in this life, that is my purpose, for those as close to me as my family, to those on the other side of the world who I will never meet, but just to raise all consciousness and compassion and realize that we made it and celebrate as humanity. So I'm hoping to do my little part, my big part, and helping us get there. And that's I mean, that's it. It's straight on. That's my purpose, with very little other distractions.
I love that. Now, was that a realization that you had after having had a few successes under your belt, or you kind of knew that all along? You were just, looking for ways to tactically, strategically wing yourself from the, basic survival things, so then you can have the bandwidth to focus on more meaningful work.
Yeah, I wish I could say this was my calling since birth. No, not even close. I'm born and raised in Manhattan. I went to good schools, and I was conditioned and programmed, just the way we're all conditioned and programmed to make money, have kids, provide, and then, if we can, enjoy some of life. So it wasn't really until around 2014, after I saw some of the digital technologies, data and algorithmic functionality that was part of incubating along the way and growing, until I really saw it turn to the dark side. and realized that a lot of which I had helped build was leading to destruction and harm throughout society. And it was extremely rude awakening, and put me, quite frankly, into deep trauma and pain and suffering and just around guilt, pure guilt. And it's when I realized that, all these great innovations in the wrong hands, or following what we've been trained in capitalism to make money. I'm not saying capitalism is bad, but can be very harmful in a massive way because of connectivity. So it was at that point, right around 2014, that I just woke up to a really horrible reality and I just flipped overnight into deciding the rest of my life would be to use the same technologies, but as best as I can, possibly, figure out ways to heal others on a global basis. So flipping those algorithms on their head, opposed to leading to mental health issues, to understanding mental health issues and helping heal mental health issues on a global basis, because we're all connected. So
I love that. Thank you. So, not to dwell in the past, but I think it adds colors and nuances to what you were talking about.
sure.
Because some may say right now at this time, this is another rude awakening moment. Like, hey, this is, thousands of years of conflict expanded, expounded, extrapolated over time. And yet it seemed like we have made no progress so far, and based on mass media, we know we have, but it's just a small group of people. They're making a ruckus, and anyways, no, not to get into the politics of it all. Paint a little more pictures of like what would the indicators of, hey, the thing that I help birth into the world is causing harm. So that way people were like, oh, I didn't know that's how I can interpret it. You know what I mean? So if you don't mind bringing more context.
You're bringing me deep into my most traumatic moment.
Yeah.
We'll go there.
For teaching purposes.
Only for teaching and understanding purposes.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Sure. So back in, I built lots of these companies. I was on lots of boards, including the Data and Marketing Association, and I sat on a bunch of boards of big companies such as American Media, which owns all the tabloids, including the National Enquirer. And if one might think of those people who read them as, yes, educated, but also maybe fairly persuadable. In 2014, after collective knowledge of where I was in the companies I built, I was able to figure out how to capture what I call a digital scream through where people pay attention online, and which really goes into their subconscious, how you agitate them to their deepest anxieties and pain points. And when I was able to capture that right around 2014, of all the email addresses from all these different publications, as some of the ones I just alluded to, I was able to identify what issues, whether it's climate change or the border or taxes, education, war, whatever it is, I could capture those through emails that people might open or not open the subject lines. And then once somebody would open one, I could track if they clicked on the content. And it was email newsletters. So if they always clicked on issues with the border, one way or the other, I could basically psychologically profile them off of just their engagement. And then with those email addresses, I was able to then upload them directly, the exact people, to Facebook, Instagram, Google Display, and YouTube, and then surround sound back to them in video. And this is the first time video ever went onto Facebook mobile in 2014. It was the Ice Bucket Challenge. So if you got to capture somebody's digital scream, then you were able to echo back that screen to them, and something I coined, an echo chamber of digital communications, to actually raise their anxiety levels basically surrounding them with that reality which they feared the most, and then be able to then give them an outlet to that, which would be either buy this, do that. And just so happens in 2014 was the first time any of this was possible. And it was 2 years before the next election, 2016. And because up until then, $2 billion of ad spend went to television for political marketing. This is just called weapons grade communication, which put television like to shame in terms of personalized anxiety building, reinforcing belief systems, their reality that they fear the most exists, and then give them ability to vote. And it turned obviously quite sour as time went on, protest and here, and which is, so I went after the $2 billion market, and the stuff built with partners in the media industry slipped very quickly out of our hands, my hands in particular, and got into not just our country politics, but then Steve Bannon and everywhere he went around the world to be able to rip apart democracy and turn citizens upon themselves. So fast forward to now, we're living as a completely divided world, divided country in what we believe to be truth. Right?
So pause on that for a second, Andy. I mean, I appreciate the analysis and the looking back, and and your journey to overcome and neutralize this part of your life.
Yes.
But in looking back, I mean, again, I'm looking at it from an objective perspective, right? So I mean, it is a capitalistic society, and of course now these are the tools available. I can't imagine people not quote unquote weaponize it to the nth degree, right? So I mean, was it not anticipated? Like, hey, could happen. Like, what do you think that we're gonna do with this tool, this powerful tool? You know what I mean?
Oh, I understand. Thank you for the additional guilt. It's cool.
I'm not, again, I'm not trying to make you feel bad about this.
It's a very, very fair question. So in my idealistic brain, it would be a way of understanding people's fears. And then the politicians could then speak to and address whatever the fears are of who should be their constituents. And then the constituents could vote based on their fears and anxieties. Okay. Clearly, I was naive and wasn't thinking past how this could be a better way of politicians presenting themselves if they actually had a way of understanding each of the citizens in this country. Okay? I did not think, and I should have thought in advance of how powerful it is, because it is that powerful, as we've now seen unfold, the polarization of if you're believe on one side of an issue versus the other, one side of the aisle versus the other. You just live in different realities. And when you have those belief systems, as you know, throughout human existence, if your belief system becomes strong enough, then you're, throughout all of history, willing to die for a cause or kill for a cause. So I just didn't have the foresight, not at all, not even close. And I should have, and maybe I was blinded by the $2 billion opportunity, but I did not look at where does this go wrong.
Okay. So at what point, again, right, this is all for teaching purposes. I'm not trying to make you feel bad at all, okay? So this is all just more for illustration. So at what point did you realize, like, okay, I gotta go the other direction because this train is running towards not the right direction I wanted to go. Let me switch gear to do something different, perhaps maybe use it for the good I want to bring to the world rather than for the not so good. You know what I mean?
I understand. So, well, it turned out, and there are certain names who I'm not going to use right now because
Great.
I but I'll allude to certain names because you know what transpired afterwards and what danger I put myself in. So I'm going to be a little careful.
Mm-hmm.
It was when the head of this big media conglomerate, American media, I had lunch with him, and he asked me if I was watching the debates, the Republican debates for 2016. And I said, actually not really paying that much attention to it. He goes, well, you see that Trump is winning, right? I go, yeah. He goes, well, I'm writing his debate material that he's collecting. If you realize that these tabloids dig up, or have been able to dig up all this dirt on anybody you want. And when he told me and reminded me, or let me know that Donald Trump was one of his best friends and closest allies, that the debate material was dirt that was being dug up by things like the National Enquirer. Okay. At which point I realized, oh shit, this is the guy who I'm working with, building this system and data, information, psychological profiling, and how to influence and persuade people to a scary degree that this is who I'm building it within a joint venture. And he's clearly going to do anything in his power to get Trump elected. So what I was hoping to launch as a business for Democrats, Republicans, state, Congress, local, anything, just weaponized one side of the equation. And to me, that's not democracy. If one side just happened to be the Democrats, right? We're still using television as a marketing medium for politics and thinking that we'll spend a little money here and there on Facebook, but when Trump's campaign and the guy who was executing on it was a guy named Brad Parscale, who was absolutely phenomenal at executing on this whole plan, was in charge of getting Trump elected. And remember, back in the day, everybody thought, oh, Hillary's up by 10 points, not a chance in hell. I'm like, no, you're so wrong. You're so wrong. You don't understand. So I desperately tried
Wait, hold on. Back up one sentence.
Yes.
I think you said you're so wrong, you don't understand. You have some insights that I think most people don't have. So you're so wrong, you don't understand. So say a little bit more about that part.
You don't understand how strong the weapon is. Communications weapon is that's being deployed by the Trump organization. You don't understand, right? Like you don't get it. And you have to adapt this new methodology. And when you do that, you get stuck with all these huge consult firms that the donors give money to, and then go spend the money for a kick, whatever, to be paid to put ad dollars onto television. So it was, I was screaming from the rooftops. And
I see. So pause for 1 second. Again, this is not about politicking and this is just data, right? I'm trying to understand the trends of this. So, okay, I'm gonna nerd out on data for just a bit. So what most people at the time thought it was the polling data, and then that's based on TV or I think like Nielsen or whatever, the sampling thing that they do. And what people didn't understand is the guerrilla, the social media, like the more targeted things that they can't see. And that's the mismatch of like, hey, Hillary's winning, but when in fact all the stuff are happening on the ground that they don't know about. Is that what I'm hearing? That's what you're pointing to?
It's more than that.
Oh, it's more than that. Okay, I oversimplify. Please explain.
Yeah, it's more than that. Say one side spends $1 million, only 1% effective on digital, even in digital. Okay. But the other side is spending the same $1 million with this method, call it a methodology. Okay. And it's 100 times more powerful, right? 100 times more powerful at persuading people, getting into their subconscious and programming them. Programming people, turning people into avatars. So
So what I'm trying to get to, Andy, again, not to get into too much detail what the methodology is, but maybe just some high level. So like, what is the methodology of programming people? That's what I'm trying to understand.
you really want me to share this right now?
I mean, if it's confidential, then don't.
No,
It's all good.
Listen, it's not, because it's and the fear going forward is clearly, and I'll share it with you, is when AI gets behind it, like game over. Okay.
Okay.
Because not just with one side anymore.
Okay.
Right. What is it?
And by the way, the reason why I'm asking this question, and not to interrupt you, keep interrupting you, is this. I mean, we frankly don't understand the machinery behind the scenes, and then I think I'm pretty educated, but I was in digital media, but I don't understand all the things that you're talking about, right? And so what I do know is maybe the business model of media company, and then they get more ratings, and if they can evoke fear, and so I don't really take media companies that seriously, because I understand that's their incentive.
Yes.
To incite fear, right? So so the kind of trickles down. So we're talking more in granular details here. Anyways, with that said, does that give you a little bit more time to think about?
All right. I mean, I'm not sure how granular I should get. So stop me when I get too detailed.
Sure.
All right. Imagine there's a magazine, National Enquirer, that has a couple of people who read it or go to it online. Imagine if you get all their email addresses, okay? Because you get them to sign up for an email newsletter. Okay? Now you start sending them lifestyle email newsletters. And in the subject line, you're tagging those subject lines around things that will give you very large signal of what matters to these people. So say you have, you send out an email a day, and of those, say it's 1 million emails, right? There are 150,000 people who always open up an email about fear of immigrants crossing the border, right? And really bad fear, like rape of your children, taking your jobs, like real fear. And they always open up on that subject line. And then they also always click through on that content. Okay.
Quick question. So just for the people who are listening, opening emails, click through, just indication of interest. So every time they do that, it just adds more scores to that.
Yes.
Keep going.
So if you're paying attention to what they're paying attention to, which I call deep listening, right? And we all know, I mean, I have a very crowded inbox in my emails, right? But if I always open up on something that is around, people are crossing the border, taking your jobs, going after your children, robbing you, all this stuff, that is a very large signal, right? By paying attention to where they pay attention, right? And it's not just paying attention with your eyes, it's then triggering an emotion in your body that will actually move your hand to hit the click, which is a big deal, right? To open. And once you open the email and you read all this content, there's a link to a further story. Then you move your hand again, right? And click that. Now, if these people, 50,000 of them do this, 10 times over the course of 2 months around the same type of content, you know that these people really are afraid of people crossing the border and coming after their family or taking their jobs. So that's step number 1. Yeah. Step number 2, you take that 50,000 and you upload it into, it's called Facebook or Google custom audiences. And very few people know this is, you sign on to Facebook or Instagram or Google or YouTube or any of them with one email address. What most people don't know is all the biggest data companies in the world sold to Facebook and to Google all of your other email addresses. So if you have 7 email addresses, you may have logged on with one, but they've got 7. Okay. So if I've got this cohort of 50,000, I put it into custom audience, I can find most of those people on Facebook, Instagram, right? Google, YouTube. And then the media buying platforms allow you to do custom audience lookalike, which means what also people don't know is all the biggest data companies in the world, such as Axiom, Experian, Epsilon, Oracle, sold all of your credit card data and your flight data and your whatever you buy data behind the scenes, all of it. So everything about you, your entire path of life, every decision you made to purchase anything under some socio-economic condition, you had a kid, you didn't have a kid, whatever, right, is all behind those scenes. So when you upload that 50,000 into custom audience, into custom audience lookalike, the algorithms behind the scenes for you will now figure out what these 50,000 have in common across tens of thousands of data points and boil it down to what I call behavioral DNA, and then scope the rest of the digital universe, right? Find people who have the exact same footprint or digital or psychological behavioral DNA, and then say, would you like to target those people? Okay. Now, when you start spending your money that way, you're not wasting a nickel on spending money targeting people that may or may not care about people crossing the border and being harmful to your family. No, you're spending at the exact people, right? And because it was the first time you could ever put video into live feed on the phone of these platforms, now you can start showing video content to these people, not through email, but on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. Now you're starting to surround sound them, right?
Omnipresence.
These exact people, right? And then as these new people you're surround sounding, you're like, do you care about this issue? Sign a petition, such as build a wall, right? Build a wall. Now what you're doing is you're collecting not the 50,000, but maybe the 2 million people, but the exact 2 million people, their email addresses, okay? Okay, now you've got the exact target audience, the 2 million people who give a shit and are petrified of somebody crossing the border and doing something to their family. Now you take them, the whole 2 million, put it back into the custom audience of Facebook, which is also Instagram, custom audience of Google, which is also display and search and YouTube. Now you start feeding back to them video and everything, right? Back at them around the exact same issues is, oh shit, they're coming after my family. And then all you got to do is start sharing those email lists with other platforms out there, such as these pop-up journalist sites, right? And now you just start reinforcing from many different angles this truth of horror that's coming at you, right? Okay, from there, holy shit, you care so much about that all of a sudden it bursts the Proud Boys or whomever, right? And then you just see clashes. So that's I hope that.
So now I really appreciate the primer, shall we say, about how to leverage data to polarize. Yeah. And so when you say AI, then it's game over. Why did you say that?
Well, because what the systems that I'm talking about that I help build, right, take human interaction, such as pulling the levers on the media buys, but also curating the right content that will put somebody into a state of fear and then anger. AI, just the level of data that it can process, the speed at which it can process, and now generative AI, right? It can scour the entire world's imagery and play it and surround sound you with it to antagonize your emotions, right? And it can also create the deep fakes, whatever. The images that we saw coming out of the Middle East over the past 10 days or so, whether it's in the West Bank, or Gaza, or if it's inside of Israel, these are horrific images, right? Surround sound people on either side that could be escalated to anger and hate, right?
Yeah.
And then AI can just generate through deep fakes whatever images will agitate you the most. And we have feedback loops on it, because if it agitates you the most, you'll watch the video for longer, which it can measure. You'll click or forward, which it can measure. Now we can measure exactly what with the feedback loop, right? Show you this, action here, show you more of this, action here, enhance the entry, right? To completely drive you to a state of, whatever, the deepest state of belief system and fear and anger, and they're coming for you. Right.
So the current, I didn't even think that we are gonna get here, but since we're on this topic, I'm just curious. More like forward-looking type stuff, right?
You're keeping us on this topic.
No, this is great. That's why I love podcasts, because you never know where the conversation goes, and here we are. Great. So one of the things that people say a lot is don't hate the player, hate the game, right?
Yes.
So I don't think individual players in the media business they're evil, bad people per se, but the entire game is structured around, hey, we get paid when we get attention, and therefore, what do we get the most attention? Guess what? Polarizing viewpoints. The more polarized people get, the more trigger they get, the more attention they pay. I think the famous quote was, hey, Howard Stern fans watched, Howard Stern X number of hours. People who hate Howard Stern watch double that amount. So it's kind of like that, right?
Yep.
So now the whole system is rigged in that way, and the AI is weaponizing that. So more and more people are going to get polarized. So that's not a good place to be, because that means more instability, more wars, more friction, more conflicts, more bigotry, all these things. Are there ways for us to bring us back to more neutral, equanimity, groundedness, using the same mechanisms, or changing the game in such a way that it can bring us back to that, using the same mechanisms that we have?
Yes and yes. I started saying don't hate the player, hate the game, probably about 7 years ago, because I was pretty angry, right, at certain people who weren't doing anything about this and knew better. And then I started studying the game, right? And one issue, which I think is a big problem, and I think it could be easily addressed, is the fiduciary responsibility of a board of directors or a CEO is purely to the shareholders. 100%. Like, that is your job. And if you're a board member, like, you can get sued for not doing that. If you're a CEO, you can get sued for not doing that. Well, that's like such a simple thing, right? Change fiduciary responsibility to not just your shareholders, but to society, or at least to your own consumers, right? To be able to, I mean, that's just an easy change to the capitalist systems, right?
Wait. So what does that mean, though? Like, does that mean that, I don't know, like society gets a percentage of the equity or voting power? Is that, I don't understand what that means.
Oh, sure. Sorry. So you're paid to be on a board of directors, or you're on a board of directors. And the board of directors makes the decisions of the company. The CEO reports to the board of directors, right? And today, your only job, and it's in the law, your job is to make more money for the shareholders.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
Period. But at the expense of what, right?
Everything else, yeah.
So if you just change that one thing, right? So your fiduciary, your responsibility isn't just a 100% to make more money for the shareholders, and you just made it a legal thing. You also have a legal responsibility to not harm. Like, it's that easy. Like, it would be that simple. And with that, I do believe that the biggest tech players would say, "Oh, we can't do that. But we're living in, like, clearly a mental health crisis. Suicide rate for teens is, like, grown, I think, by like 30% since the advent of social media on our devices. That's crazy. That's insane. But but the CEO and the board of directors say, I'm guessing they would be thrilled if there's a law that said your only job, the only thing that you're measured on isn't just how much money you make for your shareholders, but you also have a greater responsibility to do no harm, right?
Are there any kind of, I don't know, there's like B Corp, there's all these other sort of organizational, I don't know, agreements or something like that, people volunteering and sign themselves to do? Are there anything like that where you start to get a group of companies or cohorts together and say, yeah, I agree with you, Andy. We're going to agree to do no harm. Anything like that?
I don't think so. And not in the bylaws of a company, right? Not the bylaws of a company. And clearly one of the issues with doing that is share money. Money's job, and people who manage money, is to make more money, period. People who manage money, it's their job to make more money, okay? So if you could invest in a company who's solely focused on making money, or the competitor who says, sure, make money, but don't do no harm, which in this economy, it'd be like, oh, we're not going to fuck up the kids anymore. They'll make less money. The money people whose job is to make more money will invest in that company.
Yep.
And when that happens, like, oh shit, less money for this company.
That's right.
Goes under. So we're in this competitive world. So if it's not like a legally binding thing, like there is nothing in our Constitution that says the responsibilities of businesses just to make more money. Why isn't there something? I mean, it's not hard globally as part of capitalism, and it could be a beautiful thing. But then we get into the issue. Oh shit! If we're not doing it, and particularly in the world of AI, then some other country, China probably, right, is going to be better than us at it and have the ability to hold the attention more of the world and therefore beat us in this economic war that we're in. So that's kind of like the global issue. When you say don't hate the player at the game, I think people have to get over this thing of nationalism and realize that, like, wait a second, we're one humanity, one planet, and we're in a period of time. It's like it's got to be all for one. Otherwise, it's like all for none. Like we all lose. Like
when the same as Buckminster Fuller said, something along the line of the planet is our spaceship. Why would you trash your own spaceship?
But also, the planet's our own spaceship. Why would you trash your own spaceship? And if you think that there are going to be a whole lot of have-nots in the world, and that's going to be a good thing for the haves, sorry, you just got to study every revolution that's ever happened. Like the haves are going to be the first one that they're gunning for.
That's right.
So, like the first one, French Revolution, you name it.
Right? That's right. Especially when the world is polarized.
You got it.
I mean, when it's peacetime, everyone's happy, prosperous, no problem. When
it's a lot more have-nots.
Yeah.
And this polarization is doable. Like, so it's like my kids aren't safe. Okay, I can provide for my kids, but if 90% of the world is like at wicked conflict, my kids aren't going to have a good life. They're just not. It doesn't work that way. It can't work that way.
Yeah.
Because they'll go after the haves.
Yep. Okay. So thanks for sharing this, by the way. I appreciate a deep dive into 2014, the origin story.
I'm sure I appreciate that deep dive. Let me do a little breathing and stretching. And
seriously. Let's do a deep breath.
Like what we do about it.
I mean, what a great motivator to dedicate your life towards this new path that you're on, right? Yeah. Because let's talk about frequency as medicine. So tell us a little bit about how did that concept come about? Frequency as medicine.
Oh, sure. So I've first of all, I'm on the the board of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, Department of Mount Sinai. Been on the leadership council of New York Stem Cell Research Foundation, which is the largest research foundation around what can be done with your skin cells, reverse engineering them into brain cells, right? So and my undergrad degree at Cornell was abnormal psych, which is basically an early generation of behavioral economics. So how can you influence somebody to make decisions that are not in their best interest, right? So I've been passionate.
Wait, back up. Influence people who what? One more time.
To make decisions that are not in their best interest.
Okay. Say more about that. I don't understand. One more time. I still don't understand. Say that again in a different way, please.
Okay, sure.
What would be an example of that?
Sure. So there were all these studies were done in the 50s. One, I believe it was either at Stanford or Berkeley, where you took a focus group, right? And you cut it in half, and not a focus group, but a testing group, a research study. And you went to a prison, and they put half of these students inside the prison as prisoners, and they put half of them as guards. This is pretty famous. And within like a couple of days, the guards became extremely abusive prisoners, even though they knew they were just playing a role, right? That's an example. There's also one called the Skinner box, which was a study done, I don't even know, maybe the 60s, where you'd bring in two people that they said were part of the study, and one of them they would put behind a glass wall, and they'd attach him to electrodes. Well, he happened to be an actor, okay? The other one was the one who you're actually doing the study on. And the person who was doing the study had to ask that person some questions. If you got the question wrong, you were to hit a button that would shoot electricity through them. And the person who was being studied kept doing it, even when the researcher said, turn it up, turn it up, turn it up, okay? So like, what are humans capable of doing? Now, things that are not in your best interest. I don't know if you drink, but like, I can't tell the difference between Grey Goose or not Kettle One, Tito's, right? One's $20, one's $80 or $60. In God's name, would somebody spend triple the amount, right? On some, to me, I can't. Here's another one. You can go and buy a off-label Polo Ralph Lauren shirt, the exact same fabric, from the exact same factory, the exact same size, the exact same color. One, $12. The other one has a little pony on it. Okay, that's $60. That makes zero economic sense, right? Like none. So how do you, it's if you understand that, along with the mechanisms which I just described, okay, you can get people to do things that are economically irrational, make no sense.
I see.
One of my, I guess, a teacher of sorts, Daniel Kahneman, who won a Nobel Prize in this thing called behavioral economics. He won the Nobel Prize in economics, but based on cognitive behavior. He said to me, it's extremely unlikely that a human being has the capacity to be rational. What? But listen, this is just science. So, yeah. So, the study of the discipline of behavioral economics combined with the communications that we have available, it's not that hard to get people to do stuff that's not in their best interest. Now with AI behind it, it's literally controlling people. Controlling, even though we think we walk around with free will, which we do. However, you have to be really aware of how you're being influenced.
Yeah, but it's so subtle. Yeah, I can't remember exactly what movie or whatever. People basically drop little hints, and eventually, over time, you make certain decision, pick certain cars out of a thing. It's been shown as a entertainment before. So
I mean,
um,
I'll give you a fun little thing, which was another study that was done.
mhm,
It's called anchoring. So
mhm,
at University of Chicago, they brought in a whole bunch of people for this study, and the people who came through had no idea what they were being asked, but it was a series of things you had to do. When you first came in, there was a roulette wheel, and they just spin the roulette wheel, and it would land on a number. Well, the roulette wheel was rigged, right, to the number 7 and the number, I think it's 35, something like that, right? Either 7 or 35. Then you go to the next thing, whatever you're being tested on, and then they ask you a question. How many countries are there in Africa? Right? For those where it landed on the number 7, they would guess, because very few people know how many countries are in Africa. They'd be like, 6, 7, 8, 9. If it landed on the number 27, people would answer something like, 26, 27, 20, 29. So you can anchor things into people's heads, and you have no idea it's happening, like none. So
great. So the original question was,
what
explain
do we
the
do about
concept of frequency as medicine,
it? Right.
and how did you get there, and in more details how it benefits individuals' mental fitness.
Sure. The science has now proven, and hospitals are working on and agree with, that meditation is extremely beneficial for quieting your mind. And if you quiet your mind and get you down from like a alpha beta state of think from beta to alpha, then to a theta wavelength, right? It can literally calm down your nervous system. And as you calm down your mind and your nervous system, it will interact with your adrenal glands, which will either adrenaline, cortisol, which are like the fight or flight ones, or it will actually give estrogen or testosterone, which is like, okay, we're in a good state, go and reproduce. Don't worry, nobody's coming at you, right? So meditation is extremely beneficial for this. However, meditation is hard, and it takes weeks, months, if not years of practice to actually be able to quiet your brain from all the thoughts that you're talking to yourself all the time, to settle down, to get the positive benefits, the mental health benefits, right, of being able to meditate. It's just hard. And in today's world, who's got that much time or effort? And if you're stressed out and have anxiety, and you tell somebody go meditate, and they can't meditate, it just elevates their level of frustration because they can't do
Even
it.
more, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So probably about 7 years ago, I went to my first, it's called a sound bath, where go to a yoga room, whatnot, lay down, and these musicians play certain instruments, Tibetan singing bowls, didgeridoo, which is an Aboriginal instrument, crystal bowls, excuse me, um, gongs, right? And the people who go there, by just laying down and being quiet, closing your eyes and listening, are getting the same benefits that one would get after becoming very good at meditation. Right. So when I realized this, I'm like, wow. But how do we because one thing, it's way easier, it takes less time and less frustration to get the benefits of meditation if you're doing it with this type of sound bath. So then I just started thinking about, could we digitize it and get it out, democratize it and get it out to certain people, to everybody, right? Everybody. So kind of like, so that's what I met this really great guy when I went to Kauai for COVID, which was lucky and fortunate and amazing. And I met this incredible guy who and some of his friends who are really into sound healing. And the guy asked me if I wanted to get involved with his new company to actually be able to bring and democratize access to sound baths and sound healing out to the world. So I agreed about a year and a half ago. I was the founding CEO of this company, and we built the most incredible TV recording and sound recording studio in Santa Monica. Over $1 million of just engineering work to be able to capture the pure quality of the sound in surround sound, spatial audio, binaural, right? And at this point in time, we have had, I think, about 12 of the leading sound healing practitioners from around the world come in, record in our studio. And we put together a full library with audio and visual in the highest fidelity that technology could possibly do in this moment in time of sonics. And then we built an app for it. It's called VibeSet. I think that's the first time I've ever said it to anybody on a.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, because we haven't even launched it yet. It'll be launched in the App Store probably in about 3 weeks.
Right.
But with it, it is a full library of all these different instruments as well as sound healers brought down to the individual. And the goal is to then hopefully partner with Apple with all the biofeedback devices to optimize. Well, first, we're just going to be studying people's behavior to give them a personalized feed of what actually works for them and makes them feel good, right? But that's kind
before you go into the future, Andy, let me ask you some key questions about the construction, because you mentioned about it took you, $1 million in spatial and engineering, sound design, and all these things to really capture the sound healing.
Yes.
For the layman who have no idea about, why is it so hard to capture the sounds of gongs or sound bowls or things like that. Maybe you can speak a little bit about it, so that way people can really appreciate, right, why all the work and investment that you guys put in to capture it.
Yeah, thank you. So each of these instruments put out sounds that have certain frequencies, high or low, that don't get captured by almost any microphone. Okay, the full spectrum of those sounds is critically important, and one of the reasons why it works so well in person in these sound baths. Okay, so that's one thing, which was hard engineering task. The second thing is, how do you deliver spatial audio so when you close your eyes, you actually feel like you're there.
You're in the middle of it versus a sound source somewhere. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's stereo, so you're here or here. Mm-hmm. But how do you make sound appear like it's literally over your head or behind you, right? Mm-hmm. Surround sounding you. So our practitioners, which we call maestros, work with, I think 36 different mics in our studio and a bunch of binaural mics in our studio, which is a way of capturing sound very specifically. We'll either be in place working with the gong or flute or didgeridoo, but at times they'll come up around certain mics. So when your eyes are closed, each individual who's listening, it feels like you're getting a personalized sound bath by one of the best sound practitioners in the world, right? And the people that have experienced it, it's so much fun because sometimes you'll watch them open their eyes and look behind them because they really think someone's there, right? Mm. The people who we've shared this with, there's something called audiophiles, which people are just wickedly obsessed with audio. They're just shocked by how we've been able to not just record it and capture it, right? But then each time you turn acoustic, right, live acoustic into digital, it distorts the quality of the sound waves. Mm. We had to put together a system that did that conversion almost, once, but not more, right? So that it wouldn't distort not the quality, the true essence of the sound waves, right? And then having to be able to store it without compression, and then to be able to stream it without compression and distortion, to literally get down to your over-the-head headphones off of literally your handheld device, was really hard. And we had some of the leading advisors in sound engineering and acoustics and whatnot, to not just build the studio, but then to figure out the technology of the capture, the storage, and the delivery.
Got it. Even the signal processing aspect is so important. I got it. So music is one of those things. Well, number one, it's how do you even calibrate? There's no rankings. There's no like the top 40, top most popular sound healer in the world. Nothing like that. So one, how do you even do that?
Word of mouth.
I see.
Yeah, word of mouth. So there are certain people that when you speak to like 10 or 15, let's just call them really popular sound healers, and they're all pointing their direction to someone as the best. Right? And there's a guy named not Machu. I'm forgetting his name right now. Who's he's probably the best in the world, and he's from Nepal, at a specific wooden flute. Right? And because we have a lot of friends in the neuropsych space, as well as the sound healing space and the health and wellness space, we've been able to convince some of those people to come to the U.S. into our studio to record and to come back often. As some people have like resident DJs. We have resident maestros, right? Who are doing that. And then the fun part, can I talk about the future yet, or can we?
Yeah, please, of course, of course, go for it.
Is the biofeedback, right? To see.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask you about that.
Yeah.
Because my experience of sound healing is improvisational. Rarely they have like a set list, right? It's not. There's no scores. Really, just kind of think about it in the moment. So usually these type of performances one and done. So I'm so glad you're able to capture it. But it's also so personalized. How do you make sure that they not just prefer the sound, but actually getting the healing? You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. Thank you for asking that question. So yes, if they feel better, fantastic. And if our algorithm behind the scenes is recommending the best stuff for them and they're feeling better, even more fantastic. I mean, that's really all we care about, is people feeling better, right? And being more of a state of joy and love and comfort in their own skin, and then for spreading love. But partnerships with different biofeedback companies, measuring your heart variability, measuring your oxygen level, measuring your brainwave states. Right? There's these devices to partner up with. So with that feedback loop, we can actually learn what actually affects you personally, your brain states. Right? What brings you personally into a state of theta, and at what time of the day does one thing bring you into a state of theta versus something else? And then maybe you want to get into like a state of gamma waves, which is really high productivity. What will work for you? And instead of just us guessing, no, it's a scientific method down to an individual, right? Let's measure the results of how your body and brain are reacting to certain signals, right? And then, I don't even know if we're going to do this, but a long-term, at least for me, is to get FDA approval for this stuff.
Oh, that's right. I was going to ask you that follow-up question anyway.
Yeah.
What are some of the potential hurdles that you have had? Well, number one, why do you even want to get FDA approval? One. Two, if you do, what are the potential benefits? And then what are the hurdles of turning sound or frequency into medicine?
Yeah. So first of all, luckily, we're not the first ones there was a trailblazer. There is a trailblazer, and it's a guy named Adam Gazelli, and he runs a lab at the University of California, San Francisco, which is called Neuroscape. And out of his lab, he developed a video game, which is, if you think about what videos, it's just our environment, so light waves and sound waves, right? Just frequency, light waves and sound waves. And he's done the clinical trials for ADHD. Clinical trials for ADHD, and the FDA approved his video game as something that would be as effective as feeding your kids Adderall. Holy shit. And he was the first ever to get an FDA approval for a digital, otherwise known as frequency, light waves and sound wave products to help with a mental health issue.
Well, why do you even want to do that? I mean, because obviously there's a lot of hurdles, difficulties, investment to jump through the hoops, right? Well, why do you even want to do that?
Because no, I'm not sure we do, but if we did, and I do, it's because there's a whole population out there that would probably think this is woo-woo. Just like, okay, what? I'm going to meditate and my problems are going to go away? Or I'm going to listen to some sounds and it's really going to help me with my sleep or my anxiety or my depression or whatnot, or it's going to snap my kid out of a state of trauma, right? No, people like validation. And the biggest validator out there currently in today's world around medicine is the FDA.
I see.
Yeah. Do we need it? Absolutely not, because there's no FDA requirement around sound as medicine. There probably should be. There probably should also be, good idea. Wow, this is an interesting idea. FDA approval around media.
Yeah.
Pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Think about what I was saying before, right? Do no harm.
I know. Yeah, for sure. I mean,
because there is precedent that because of Adam Gazelli, there's precedent that light and sound frequency media is medicine because they approved it for ADHD. So maybe that's actually interesting.
I'm just thinking about the antagonisms of those who, it's going to hurt their pocketbook. So they're like, no. That's what I think about right away. So
very, very, very fair statement.
Yeah.
Extremely fair. And I've gone up against those giants in the media world, the political world, and lots of different powerful worlds. And it is the reason why it would probably be foolish of us to even get on the radar of the pharmaceutical industry.
Right.
Because, oh shit, if you can put this on your head and like you don't need to take a bunch of pills, that's going to hurt somebody's pocketbook.
Yeah, I mean, we can argue why FDA, right? FDA is good because, as you said, adds legitimacy, validation, credence to the thing. Yeah, well, but there are many, many other things where you can add as credence. Now, if you say, all right, we're going to market it as a drug, so we can get medical insurance money or whatever, okay, that makes sense. But if it's just purely the consumer, there are many, many things that people buy without going through the rigorous.
I so agree with you, and it's not needed because like the cost of the app, like it's not going to be needed to be covered by insurance, right? But I also do want to help these alternative health practitioners, which they're called now, alternative, like sound healers, right, with their validation. Because some of this stuff is actually expensive, very expensive to get a personalized sound healing done, like extremely expensive. So if insurance covered that, that'd be tremendous, like absolutely tremendous. I think insurance now covers acupuncture. Is that true?
I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah, I don't know. I think so, because I may have used it. I don't know. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's probably a bad idea for us to do it, but the example you just mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just, thinking about it. So, I'm not making any suggestion one way or the other.
Trust me,
curious.
I think about it quite a bit. And
Yeah.
like, why? Well, it's just to help as many people as possible.
I mean, the thing that I think about, and just riffing here off the top of my head, you can effectively be the validation lab yourself, right? Since you're having the expensive equipment of doing all the engineering stuff, you're having probably access to all the technology measurement tech
Yep.
as well, HRV, brainwave, oxygen level. You can effectively probably publish your own, collected paper, and that would be validation enough, right? If you publish certain things either with university partners or by yourself to the scholarly world, that would add the credence that you need, no?
All on the roadmap.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, all on the roadmap, right?
Yeah.
Just get a few hundred people into a room linked up to all these biofeedback mechanisms.
Yeah.
And just get case studies, right? And with close observation in the scientific community. That's all in the roadmap.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, nutraceutical companies, they have sold lots of things without the rigor of the scientific study. Now they're trying to get more rigorous, but
Yeah. By the way,
most,
you touched on something before, which is around certain sounds will do certain things to certain people, right? Like, and the easiest way for me to explain this to people who are not familiar with a sound bath or what I'm talking about is, there are certain songs that each of us listen to and give us energy.
mm-hmm.
They might not give somebody energy; they might hear it as noise, right? There are certain songs for us that might bore you to tears, but might somebody else feel love and romantic, right? So how do we customize sound medicine?
Oh, that's right. Yes, I wanted to ask you about the preference versus response, and then how do you, basically create like Pandora of sound healing effectively based on my response. You give me something.
Okay, that's easy. That's in our algorithm, right?
Uh-huh.
Just by studying what you pay attention to, what you like, which sound healer you come back to more frequently. Do you listen to it like for 1/3 of it or all the way through? How often you come back, or what instrument, what time of day? That's all baked into our algorithm, right?
Okay.
But that's beautiful. But people also like to see results, right?
Mm-hmm.
On something, right? So with all the biofeedback devices and actually plugging into Apple Health, right? It's actually seeing what it's doing to your biometrics, your biomarkers, right? Now we're starting to get like hardcore. Now you're starting to get into not just recommended, but prescription-based, algorithmic-based on your biology.
Mm-hmm.
What sounds to use when you're in what state of being, right? So if you're studying your own heart rate, your own variable heart rate, you're studying your oxygen level, your blood pressure, and your brainwave states. You say, I'm really jacked up. I need to chill the hell out because I got to go to sleep in like a half an hour. Well, if you're connected to these devices and you have been fed certain content, when you have these different biological states, just for you specifically, take this medicine, right? These frequencies, these instruments, this length of time, this mood, this whatever, and it'll drop you back down because we've seen it time and time again in the patterns of studying your biometrics.
Ooh, here's another cool thing. I don't know if you know. Oh man, how do I describe this? I don't know. You can record human voice, and then you can produce a certain scale, and then you can use that scale to make a song. You can basically play like a piano, and the human voice will come out.
Yeah.
So what if you can do the same with a certain sound patterns, maybe the flute, or maybe the sound bowl, or maybe the didgeridoo, or whatever, certain sound frequencies, and based on that, then you can essentially use the AI generated composition based on this feedback, so you can optimize for the outcome.
So I'm okay with the AI generated. You don't need AI. You need machine learning.
Okay.
Right? To study this amount of data to then be able to compile which instruments put together in what sequence over what amount of time, at what volumes, whatnot, right? I do not want to use, fundamentally, I'm opposed to using machine-generated sounds.
Great. Tell us why.
Sure. Well, first of all, I don't know your audience all that well. Because I'm about to hop from science mode and whatever into more like consciousness mode.
Perfect.
That
Perfect.
works?
Our audience is us. It's the same.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'll start with like the physics, quantum physics world, which is no shit. We're surrounded by frequency everywhere we walk. Our people, our maestros, right? They're sitting in a space and time in three-dimensional reality, floating in a sea of frequency, right? These people are tapped in, and through their bodies, you're right. It is not, they don't play a song. No, it just comes through them, and they play what feels what right to it. And your brain your brain can predict what comes next, okay? If you're listening to words, your brain gets used to those words and knows what comes next. So it's very easy to your brain will get distracted and maybe even start singing along. Or when you know what comes next, it's very hard to calm down the brain and from being distracted from alternate voices or memories that might pop in our head, right? So because it appears to be a random playing of different instruments by this tapped in human, which is just an instrument himself, right? Being played by the frequencies that's surrounding them, right? And there's something very important about these instruments. And they're, all from indigenous places and cultures from around the world. They're all like, pretty much handcrafted with so much love and attention. And if you understand like the history of matter and energy, right? Each of these instruments are just condensed energy or wavelengths, right? So when you're actually having a human downloading, that's a woo-woo term, but like surrounded by frequency and being played as an instrument, playing the actual instrument, which also have so much information gathered in them, and to be able to capture that is raw and true to biology on biology, right? In our brains. AI doing the same stuff, man, I just can't. Let's just say there's no soul in it.
Got it. So
there'll be, and I believe that that's very important.
why is that?
Why do I believe that's very important?
I mean, why? Wait, I'm agreeing with you. I'm just asking
Okay,
more.
I'm trying to think through it. It's a tough question. Of organic things, beings, right? I don't think that's true love. It might be artificial.
Yeah.
Yeah, artificial might carry, poison people, poison people. So I go back to, I guess, original medicine of humans. And that's what we're just, because we live in a digital world, we've just been able to do it to the best as we can through digital distribution, bring that love down to the human to the best we can, right? To make people feel loved, supported, calmer, self-regulated, bathing people in love. So it's just core to my belief system. Can't prove why or why not.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, Andy, why do we do what we do? You know, some people use the 5 why method, why, to try to get to the truth. Some people use the what method to, you know, what's important about this, and just keep asking and to get to the truth. And some people use religion to get to the truth. I mean, at the end of the day, why? It's irrational, which is because it's meaningful, right? If it's meaningful for you, great.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really asking the question why, so then we understand where you're coming from. I'm not, you know, debating with you or anything like that. So.
No, I appreciate that. It was really good questions, and I love how you framed it that way. And because it's my truth.
Yeah, and that was great, and much to discuss there. We'll find out soon enough. I think that this is me forward projecting, forward looking.
Yeah.
People have a really intimate relationship with their phone already. One may say they love their phone, even use that word.
Yes.
Now, wait until the phone responds back to you in kind with a human voice, or you know, some anticipation of what you like and saying things that you like, much like the movie Her.
Yep.
Or I think there's a movie that I watched on Netflix. It's called Better Than Us or something along that line. So it was very much in the camp of what you just said, a humanist. Oh, we can't have a genuine relationship with a digital being. I watched the movie and I'm like, maybe I changed my mind. But we'll find out because, you know, it's still theory. I have no idea.
It's actually not that theory right now, theoretical.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Tristan Harris and Asa Askin?
I know Tristan Harris, not personally, but I know of him. And then the second name, I don't know.
Yeah, so Tristan Harris and Asa Askin, they're the guys behind the movie The Social Dilemma.
Yep.
They are co-founders of a non-for-profit called the Center for Humane Technology.
Okay.
They've been tapped by the leaders in the AI space from our biggest companies, media companies, social media companies, digital companies in the US and global and government and national security folks to figure out what the fuck do we do, excuse my language, I guess it's okay, it came through me. What do we do about this emerging dilemma of AI? So you can go on YouTube and watch yourself. It's called the AI dilemma. I'm not sure if they spoke about this, but I was briefed on certain things. I believe it's in China already, where people are having love relationships with AI, right? As in best friend, most trusted relationships is with AI. And that's my greatest fear, right? It's my greatest fear because of how we began this conversation, which is really about who do you trust and how easy it is to manipulate. So if it's an artificial being, right, that knows more about you than you even know about yourself, could possibly even remember about yourself.
I think actually, let me actually again do a gentle pushback there. How do I articulate this? I don't think AI inherently is bad. It is the amplifier of the creator's intent. So if the creator intended it to do certain things, like a weapon, for example, the weapon's intention is to harm, and then therefore you can use it to harm or use it to protect or whatever articulation that you have. So when they let's see, how do I say this? It's a little muddle in my thought, but I think it depends on the creator's intent and the user's intent, and then obviously gamification of the entire system, and that also is gonna move people's behavior one way or another. So, anyways, what did you get from what I deliver or try to deliver?
No, it landed. It landed. I think what you were unintentionally doing, which this is kind of a side joke, is relieving my pain and suffering from the earlier part of this conversations. I just built a thing, and the users who actually went and then used the thing was out of the control of the original creator. Right? I know that's not what you intended. What you're saying is, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, AI could be the greatest equalizer that has ever happened on this planet. And it could literally lead to the most beautiful life for my kids, the most incredibly beautiful life of having to put less effort into this thing called being able to feed their family, take care of their family, and do whatever, because AI can do all of it for us, right? So, but here's the dilemma, which is, for the time being, AI is being trained on what we humans have done.
That's right.
All right, are we? If you wanted to create one of the most powerful sources in the world, would you want it, and that's more powerful than us, would you really want to create something that's better at destruction than we are? I mean, just look at our history of humankind. They're learning off of everything we've done. So, and finding all the patterns to then be able to not just replicate, but to create it new and create even better, right? And that's a real dilemma there. And so it's just what information do you feed the AI, right?
Yep.
And so
I'm gonna butcher this quote, but I'm trying to articulate this thought. Anything that you invent cannot extend the consciousness of the inventor. Anything in response to that?
trying to think what that means. Yeah, so it's kind of like Pandora's box is open, right? Like whatever your intention was, is that what it means? Like if your intention was and your conscious was good, once it's invented, it's out there, and then can be used. I mean, you can just look at Oppenheimer. It was a bunch of scientists with their intention to kill. I don't remember, like 60 or 70. I don't remember, a lot of people with an invention. And I guess when you say your consciousness, which obviously I think we had this conversation around, like, how do we define consciousness? Because it's a pretty trendy word these days. I might just define consciousness as caring about the whole more than you do about yourself, and realizing we're kind of all in this together. We're all part as one, this as future unfolds, and compassion, love, and kindness. So can technology have compassion, love, and kindness? Well, not if they have a learning set that's not strongly, geared towards examples of humanity's love, compassion, and kindness. So I guess the inventor can have the highest level of consciousness possible. But then, I mean, it's a really good question. Can consciousness travel? Can consciousness be not just replicated? Can it be replicated and put into something else? I guess we'll find out. I have no idea.
Yeah, we'll find out. I mean, going back to the very, very early part of the conversation, it's based on feedback loop. And that's a basic, the most basic level. What you feed, the machine is gonna optimize for more of that. So if you feed it good data, a la what we're trying to do, right? Enhance inner peace, love, connection, and you feed that data, it's gonna try to optimize for that. But if you feed it polarization. Here's how you divide. Here's how you get, people to be really anxious. The machine's it has no judgment about it. Like, okay, sure, no problem. It's gonna keep getting to that more and more and more.
Yeah. So a line that Tristan Harris uses: give a human a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a human to fish, and they'll eat for a lifetime. Teach AI how to fish, they'll master biology, chemistry, oceanography, and fish all the fish to depletion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So seeing we are right now in a world of desire for money and power on a global scale,
Mm-hmm.
And down to an individual company scale, right? And then also down to an individual human scale. Power to feed your children, money to feed your children, right? If you were to program if a company, a country, an individual, or a terrorist group were to program their AI in today's world, there are very few people who are motivated towards program it towards peace on Earth, which is quite easy. Just wipe out the humans, there'll be peace on Earth, and that's probably what the AI would do. Or mental health, because there's not a lot of money in people not needing pharmaceuticals, or calmness and security, so we don't have insecurity, so we don't need to buy brand name things to make us feel secure. No, it would be optimize how to influence people so we can have more money and power. That's what the majority of AI will be programmed as. And you're exactly right. So with that level of consciousness, we're in a bit of a dilemma.
Beautiful.
And it's an AI dilemma, or is it a human dilemma? I'm focusing on
the
human dilemma.
the Chinese word for crises, 危机, there's danger and there's opportunity, right? So it's up to us to actually choose if we want to see it as a catastrophe, up and coming, the sky is falling, or can we see it as an opportunity? What an opportunity to create something new and beautiful.
So that's where I'm focusing all my efforts, right? That's where I believe you're focusing all your efforts. I believe that's where most of the people in your program are focusing your efforts. And I also believe in the power of collaboration.
Oh, that's right. That's a perfect segue. Okay, that's the thing that I do want to ask you next. Totally forgot about that. You are a community creator of extraordinary humans to foster higher consciousness and beautiful things in the world. Say a little bit more about that community and what you hope to accomplish with that.
Sure. So I've been a community builder since I was a kid. I ran underground nightlife for New York City private school kids when I was 16 years old, which was a community of renting out loft spaces and having kegs of beer and DJs and dancing, which made me a lot of money, but also pulled together a community of like-minded people. Then over the years, I would have lots of talks at my house, and I would select. I've been very fortunate with who my mentors are and people who have become really dear friends, like top of their field in lots of different fields. Bring them all collectively around a table to have dinner, and then a big whiteboard in my dining room, and we discuss world issues, but from different perspectives to solve problems. And then with the United Nations for the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, Ban Ki-moon's office asked me for help to build the software to allow humans from all walks of life, different villages, different PhD in this, that, or the other thing, to collectively come up with, first of all, what are the challenges of achieving these goals, and then collectively come up with the solutions in terms of sustainable businesses to achieve these goals. So this is just kind of my other path of life for a long time. And then when COVID hit, we had a gathering, about 20 very unique, highly skilled people, like wildly, Dr. Mark Hyman was there. Tristan Harris was there. Daniel Schmattenberg was there. I'm not sure if you know him.
Oh, no shit. Yeah.
Yep. Dr. Mark Hyman, did I say Hyman? Dr. Mark Hyman. Dr. Anita Goel, the leading nanobiphysicist in the world, was there. And a dear friend of mine, Atai Matamambe, who ran innovation for the United Nations under Ban Ki-moon. And the subject was about higher consciousness. And I was discussing how social media and digital hacking will lead to lower consciousness. It was kind of a beware thing. And what can we do about it? Also, Paul Dalio. So Ray Dalio's son was there. It was his apartment. Paul Dalio's apartment.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden COVID hit. So myself and my partner at the time, work and relationship, started something that we started calling it Task Force C19, COVID-19. And it became a weekly Zoom call. It started with 20, and then it grew to 40, and it started going global. And then a guy named Dr. David Nabarro, who ran the 2030 agenda under Ban Ki-moon, came onto a call with us and said, we told him, okay, I'm like, hey man, I got 40 amazing humans across the globe who want to be helpful in reducing suffering. So he joined one of our calls and he gave us things to do. And with that, it grew to eventually 103, what I call Jedis from around the world. And I'm talking like Navy SEAL, SEAL Team 6 team leaders, right? Some of the best thinkers and globally. And we were collaborating behind the scenes and with some of the best athletes in the world, musicians in the world. And we saved a lot of lives during COVID, particularly in the townships of South Africa during lockdown. We were able to get them 60,000 people food, masks, and sanitizer for 90 days. When if they didn't have it, they were locked down in shelter with nothing. There would have been riots and a lot of blood. And then as we kept progressing, we said, okay, this is a forever thing. So we turned it into Task Force Humanity. It's a global group of Jedis around the world collaborating behind the scenes, each embedded inside of either a sports team, a band, the military, scientific brain trusts, right? And everybody's kind of collaborating behind the scenes. This is my community that I built with this amazing woman, Chioko. So it's still alive, going extremely well. And I've been somehow for the past about 2 or 3 months, more Jedis, 4 months or so, are starting to flow towards me through relationships with people. And like a lot of people are like, oh, Andy, you really have to meet this person because he belongs in this circle of Task Force Humanity. And that's how Jan, right? He arrived in my life. As you know, he's like 3-time world champion in Tai Chi, right? So he's now my trainer. And he's like, then Jan's like, oh, you got to meet this one. He's the one who introduced us, right? So I'm gathering, or they're gathering towards me, these superheroes around the world that I connect with one another when they can help each other. And sometimes I can connect 4 or 5 people to somebody who would never be able to get to those 4 or 5 people to help what their mission is, whether it's a business, nonprofit, cause, whatever. So I'm, yes, a community builder at heart, in my truth. I make 0 money from it. It is just pure passion, being able to help those helping others.
I love that. Now you having, let's see, how do I ask this question? I can take that in so many directions. So I'll share a personal tidbit and then I can ask you some tactical things, okay? So we did something similar during COVID. It was a group of innovators. In our men's group, we did something similar as well. And it was a different scale of, what we did. Not to invalidate anything that we did not to glorify anything that you did per se, just more like learning, right? So for me, what you did worked because it continued till today. Today is 2023, you're still, active and connecting people. What we did, it kind of just fell apart. Yeah, if we actually in some kind of a fallout, right? And then the men's group thing, we deliver some groceries, and that was that, right? So all good, all fine. So I'm curious, knowing what you know today, what do you think made your group work?
Yeah. First of all, it was the only thing I did. It was the only thing Chioka did, and we 3 other people who were. It's the only thing they did. So it was 5 full-time people giving of their time, like full time. The next thing that we did is, and this was the biggest part, is how do you develop a new economic system of incentives to build a bond of trust and love, and not, forget the love part, reciprocity and belonging, and how do you build an economic structure? And a dear friend of mine, Jordan Hall, has some. Yeah, so he was part of our group too.
Oh, great. Jordan, the smart guy. He's the one that mentioned Daniel Schmonberger to me. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, well, Jordan's like a brother of mine, and
oh, great.
Yeah, and he and a few others were very much mentoring me through this process. Like, so I had a whatever advisory council, right, of how to do this without fucking it up because the stakes were so high, right? And as you know, his thing is we live in a game of game A, which is kind of prisoner's dilemma, right? Either win-lose scenario, so we all lose. And his goal and my goal is a world which he considers game B, which is win-win. Right? I think we'd all like that. But how do you get there? So what I was able to do, I just happen to be the hub, but it was a we mentality. Like, number one is, hey, I'm not the boss here. I'm nothing. I'm connective tissue. Right? I'm connective tissue for the group. Number two is we made it not intentionally, but just became this way. The bar to get into our group was extremely high. Number one is higher consciousness first. How we collectively agree what higher consciousness means, right? Compassion for us before self-gain. Number two.
I like that a lot, actually. Thank you for sharing that.
The next thing is Jedi skills. So top 10 in the world at whatever your expertise is, right? That's a pretty high bar, but we were lucky to start with a core of 20, right? That all hit that. And then when
did you get to, in terms of governance, do you get to say that, or is it more like a consensus thing?
Oh, everybody knew that's who we were and what we were doing, and then the onus came down on me, which was real onus. So this is one of the reasons why it worked, is I had to spend at least an hour, 2 hours with every single person. That's 130 people, right? Luckily for me, it allowed me to learn so much from these people, and they became my teachers and whatever they were Jedi's at, right? By the way, this part of it almost basically exploded my brain, taking in all that information. But then the number one rule, and kind of the only rule, it was the only rule, that how you get, you're no longer part of the community, is betrayal of trust. Period. Betrayal of trust. So we made trust, we made trust the currency. And because I forgot one thing. The third thing, when it became too many people, which is like people, I'm like, I can't think about the way 80 other people think, get into their shoes to know who to put together with who. My brain's going to explode. So we had to like make it tighter. So the third thing was, if the new person whatever their Jedi skills are, could benefit. Say we're at 80 people, each of the other 80, and each of the other 80 could contribute to that one individual. That was the third filter. Then each new person came in, doubled the power or influence of the group. Mathematically, each time you added one, it doubled it, right? So then being in the group, what was amazing is we all had each other's backs and endorsed each other, and came to each other's help when needed, when needed, right?
So quick question there. Trust is, in my opinion, earned over time. We can just, you can go through, some kind of really difficult situations together, but of Navy SEALs or ayahuasca ceremonies or Burning Man or whatever the thing that you're up to, you can accelerate that a little bit. But ultimately, in my opinion, this is my opinion, that trust is earned over time, going through these type of cycles over and over again. So I'm curious,
Sure.
How did you develop that trust to the 80 other people in the group? One, that's really difficult already in my mind. And two, how do you do that virtually? Because you're not necessarily kind of hanging out together, ayahuasca ceremony or Burning Man or kind of environment where you're like living and breathing each other's, stuff. You know what I mean?
Yep. So it's a great question, and here's the answer. People's personal reputations were at stake. Nobody was going to bring in somebody to the group unless they think it would increase their reputation in the group, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make them look better than themselves. So them as curators.
Mm-hmm.
Andy, I got somebody really incredible. Would you bet your reputation on it? Because you're already in, right? Now, the fear of losing that's trust right there. Can I trust you, right? Would you bet your reputation on it? Yes, I would. Then I spend 2 hours with them, right?
So you do ask that question, would you bet your reputation on it?
100%.
I see. Good. Awesome.
Then once in the group, because being in the group we're able to borrow the reputation of all the other 130. You betray trust, you lose it.
So how do you betray trust? Again, let me bring up what we do in our men's group. You can tell me how you guys do it. So in our men's group, the way we do it is confidentiality is of the utmost importance. And if you break confidentiality, that's how you break our trust. But what's betrayal trust for you?
If you intentionally put your own benefit above the benefit of others,
I see.
and mislead, flat out lie, misrepresent, and it worked. It worked because, listen, during the early days of COVID, these are some pretty powerful people, and there are lots of ways of making a lot of money off of moving PPE and such, right? So if we're going to get behind somebody moving a lot of PPE, you better let us know. Are you taking advantage of people? Are you, increasing prices, whatnot? You better let us know, right? And we moved a lot of PPE.
I'm sure.
A lot of it.
I'm sure.
But just be honest. What's in it for you?
Okay, so personal gain is all right. Just be transparent about it.
100%.
Within the group.
As long as you're being honest about it, right?
Yeah.
If you're hiding something, and then then you're not just you're not just risking your own reputation out there in the world. You're risking all of our reputation out there in the world.
Yeah.
Right. So so what I was able to do after all of this, people who had, and we did all these breakout sessions because you're right, it was all done on Zoom, which was insane to build that level of trust bonds on Zoom from different political views, socioeconomic views, countries, the whole 9 yards, to be able to build that cohesion or coherence of trust was hard as hell.
Yep.
Got to the point where I would be able to just say, you and you and you, Zoom call, the three of you. I was then on each of the little direct introductions around some project. Okay, I was on each.
Wait, back up. What did you say?
I was on the Zoom calls. So say there was person A in our group, person B and C, and the three of them didn't have like a lot of one-on-one time in our breakout sessions. Like, and say person A really needed help from person B and C. You know, person B and C, I need to get on a Zoom call with person A and myself tomorrow. They're busy people.
Yeah.
But because I said, I asked for help, and usually it was like, it'll be good for all sides. It'll be good for both of you. And by the way, it's good for you to help this person because this person can help you with this and all this stuff. I was then on every single one of those meetings, introductory meetings, with the personal touch. I would say, person A, I love you, and this is your super skills. Person B, I love you, and these are your personal skills. Person A, I trust you implicitly. Person B, I trust you implicitly. Therefore, right now, I am putting my brand, my reputation online that you guys can trust each other. And then they'd be off and running. And it was how do you do it? How do you build trust just like that? You endorse.
So question here, Andy. Again, I'm getting a little tactical if you don't mind.
You seem to get a little tactical and into the engineering of sociodynamics.
No, man, I really want to understand the social engineering aspect of it, because when people talk in high level, like, yeah, win-win, totally.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, how do you do it? Like, I don't know. You know? So hence why I want to learn from this, you know, in terms of, you know, personal interest, because I don't know how to do it, right? So I want to get into it tactical. You know, people can make strategic introductions all the time, but what I also found personally, when there's no, you know, stakes for win-win-win for everyone involved, people don't do it because they're not incentivized to do it, right? If it's just a goodwill kind of a thing, like, good luck, you know, here you go, whatever happens, happen. And that I just haven't found to be long-term sustainable. So again, I'm curious to know your thought around it. Is it just, hey, you guys meet and that's it, I'm out? Or is there some kind of, you know, here's how we can all win together, and then, you know, the project?
Yeah.
Curious to know your thoughts.
I think part of what made it work, and it's not self-sustainable, right? For larger groups, for even bigger, it's not self-sustainable. Is number one is I financially personally took care of my team that were full-time on it. And yeah, and then in these introductions, throughout the entire thing, I've never made a nickel off of it. Any of it.
Why not? Because you want to share the good in the world, so that's, you're okay with that? Or is it just like more philanthropic, makes you feel good? Like, why not? I'm curious.
During that period of time, and now during that, there's something more important than money, and it's trust and what can be done between the relationships, right? And listen to me, like, shoot, I don't have the biggest bank account in the world, but my friends and my relationships and my, like, if the world goes to shit tomorrow, I've 100 plus homes around the world that would take my kids in. Okay? Well, that's clearly more valuable to me than more money. Right? And you know, these people are like, they're family. I really think about them as family.
Wow.
So, and they're more warriors out there. So the warriors for light, doing good in the world. So wait a second, if I care about all, and this is somebody else who's going to fight the battle on that field, and somebody else fighting the battle on that field, of course fucking give them more help. If they can all help each other, holy shit, now we've got a unified front of these Jedis out there with the force of the whole behind it. I get to just sit back and be happy and feel good about myself and not have to fight all those battles on my own. Right? How do you leverage yourself? Right? I talk a lot about like leadership these days, and like the problem, some of the problem with the world is we have leaders who want to be leaders. Right? This is exhausting. It was horrible. I mean, it personally exhausted me and like destroyed my. I mean, I think I shared with you. I ended up hospitalized for quite some time. I destroyed my endocrine system.
I didn't know that. I see.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Got it. So here's one thing that I observe, and I'm not pointing at you specifically, but I'm curious to know your thoughts about this. So I meet a lot of people who's very good nature. They're helpers of the world, right? When you see something that needs help, they help.
Yeah.
But often they do it at the cost of personal health or finances, relationships, or mental well-being, whatever the case may be, right? Again, I'm not pointing at you specifically.
No, you can put all of those. You can point at me.
Just generalizing this, and hence why the question about the win-win-win comment. So that way, you're not doing good at the cost. When I say you, generic you, this person is not doing good at the cost of all of themselves. Hence, because I'm thinking long term, not short term. So I'm curious to know, having been through that, having had the endocrine system, all that stuff, all that cost on yourself, how would you do it differently if you were to do it over again?
Well, thank you for asking that, because that's what I'm doing right now. And very much learning from mistakes, which literally hospitalized me and put me too close to death. Okay? And lost. I mean, fiance's not with me anymore. Right? Not fun to watch your beloved walk around in tremendous amount of chronic pain while helping so many others, but not taking the time to help himself, in particular when she's a healer of sorts. So and then I ended up in the hospital for like a long time. So it's a silly little thing, but it's so important. And the number of people who said it to me, it was well, it's a term. I'm sure most of the people on your series here, and most of the people who gave a shit this much, is how many people have said to us, put your mask on first before helping others. Well, maybe that's for others. That's not for me. Well, I learned that lesson the really hard way.
So knowing what you know today, having gone through that, what would you do differently? Like, I know I get the metaphor. I think everyone gets the metaphor, but like tactically, if you want to still do good in a scale that you want, how would you, put your mask on first? Again, I want to make it tactical because people are hearing like, yeah, so.
Number one, quit drinking. Pure poison. Not good for your. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Like, oh yeah.
Okay.
Like, just sure, it'll make you numb whatever. I was in wicked chronic pain, like extreme chronic pain. Alcohol worked, but it was also killing me at the same time. And when you need to just zone out or whatever, alcohol, pretty good thing to make. Don't do it. It's poison. So if you walk around with a clean, a pure body, quit alcohol, eat healthier, exercise as an absolute mandatory priority, meditate, spend time with loved ones, not with your mind elsewhere, but actually being in love with your loved ones, and then take some frivolous time just to go out and look at the trees or the stars or something and go like, holy shit, this place is insanely beautiful, magic. And then the answer is take care of yourself, literally, and that's it. Right? And of course, that's where a lot of the sound healing came in for me really seriously, like very.
Got it.
As part of my path through of healing to restructure my own brain, my endocrine system, my nervous system, restructuring it. Like I shattered the whole thing, right?
Got it.
Yeah. So sound healing, eating, sleep, so important, insanely important. And literally, and as soon as I did that, right? As soon as I did that, I didn't have to put so much effort into things. I literally didn't have to put so much effort into things. I'm now able to just walk through life with grace, and more people are just insanely incredible people are just coming to me and being like, oh, you're doing this, how can I help? Oh, you're doing this, oh, how can I help? It's just pure grace. And just walk around. It's amazing what happens if you just walk around cheerful.
Mm-hmm.
With your body and your mind cheerful. And so, no, I didn't. And by the way, my fiance at the time, literally the number of times she told me, you have to take care of yourself, you have to take care of yourself, you have to take care of yourself, you're going to die. Like you're in the process of dying. And I just didn't listen.
Yeah.
And also, once you get into that cycle of adrenaline, just constant going, you become addicted to adrenaline. So you're a junkie of your own adrenaline. But it's not that much fun.
I was speaking to another entrepreneur friend earlier today, and his business is doing really, really well, and he has a family and takes his kids to Disneyland with a YPO plan. So they basically privatize Disneyland and you can drink alcohol and all that stuff, right? Cool stuff that he's doing. And then he shared with me that he drinks. He makes sure to tell me, well, not a lot, not an alcoholic, but I drink 3 times a week. And when I drink a lot. Like, okay. So, knowing what you know today, what would you say to my friend who, perhaps is numbing some of the stress with alcohol? Again, I don't know. This is just, what would you say, knowing what you know today, to my friend?
I would ask your friend, does he feel satisfied in the present moment? Is he enjoying being in his body and in his relationships in the present moment? Is he feeling love from his loved one as strong as he could? And is he giving love as much as he could to those around him? To me, that's the greatest joy in life, receiving love and giving love. Okay? If he's not doing that, if he's not feeling that way, alcohol is used to numb. If you're numb, you might be numb to all the negative shit that's going on, but you're also numbing yourself to feeling the true, authentic love that's around you and your ability or others around you to get the true, pure love from you. Okay? And I've empathized, clearly, been there, but like right in this moment, and I try all the time, and this whole thing, oh, be here now, be in the moment, be present. Well, no, well, what does that actually mean, right? Like, to actually be in moment, appreciating the person who's there with you, appreciating listening, paying full 100% attention without thinking what you're going to say next. No, just absorbing. And then sharing without intention, but just sharing pure love or whatever towards that person. It's just such a nicer, easier way to live. Such a nicer, easier way to live. And when you get to that state of pure body and mind, things just come to you. I don't fucking know. Call it manifest. Call it all these books that we all read. Call it, the power of thought. Call it, whatever. It just works. And this is somebody who, like, for decades, did it purely through effort. Purely through effort. So clean your body, and then literally clean your body, clean your vessel, I mean, down to the cellular level. Just get the bad shit out. And if you want to think clearly and be able to appreciate clearly and see straight without foggy vision or distorted vision, then don't drink. Clearly, it distorts our vision, it distorts our capacity to feel. So yeah, that's what I would say. And then I would say directly to your friend, I get it, and you are loved. Just love yourself. And if you love yourself, why in God's name would you put poison into it? Why in God's name would you ever do that? Then you can say you love yourself, but that's just words. No.
Beautiful, Andy. I know we cover a lot of ground. Is there anything that if people are listening, if they can leave with one idea? I mean, that last one was amazing, but if there's anything that you wanted to say, anything I didn't ask you.
Yeah, I think so. And if there's one thing that I think is so fundamental for where we are in the world, it's this kind of forgiveness. I did a lot of work in Rwanda, and there's the genocide in Rwanda, Hutu versus Tutsi. And the Hutu slaughtered 1 million Tutsi in 100 days.
Wow.
100 days. And when I was over there, somehow the Tutsi forgive the Hutu.
Wow.
For neighbor to neighbor. Like they killed each other with like axes and pitchforks, like whatever they had. And now they forgive each other. And the reason why is because the history of how the Belgium came into Rwanda, and to get economic benefit out of that part of Africa, they gave a minority of the population these cards that say Tutsi. They say, you're the powerful, you're the upper class, and you always will be. And the other group, they say, you're the Hutu, you're the lower class, and you always will be. So if you have a powerful minority ruling a powerful minority, all of a sudden, just the power of radio. That's all they had is communication. The word came out that says Hutu, starts whatever, go after them. The Tutsi are about to slaughter you and your families. Through radio, okay? Killing, okay? So the reason why they were able to forgive is they were misled, they mistrusted, they got manipulated by power sources of media, right? Look around the world today. Yes, there's unforgivable things down that individuals did. And some people, even today, I've seen friendship being ripped apart about what's going on in the Middle East. Forgive each other. We're each living in our own reality. It's a tough time. Forgive what people say, and also forgive yourself for things that you might have done where, I mean, clearly, after what I shared at the beginning of this, I forgive myself.
Awesome.
Right? And so forgiveness, please, in today's world, just forgive.
It's actually on that note, I mean, again, one of those isms that people say, but when it comes to doing it, well, you do it, right? So is there a technique? Is there a place you can send people to? So that way people really want to do the work and forgiving themselves, or people forgive those that harmed them in the past. They have some concrete steps that they can take.
Yeah. Very, very easy is say to somebody, the way I perceived what you were communicating was very harmful to me. But that's the way I perceived it. Was that your intention? And if you just do that, you put the onus on yourself. I perceived what you communicated, not what you intended to communicate. I perceived it as harmful and painful and angered me. Was that your intention? You're giving somebody the benefit of the doubt. And you're also giving the ability for them to explain themselves. And the next thing you can do is just listen. People have the right to have their, I mean, it's just the world of media and their history and everything they've been surrounded with. Just listen without feeling attacked. And maybe if you get in there, you can actually feel a little bit of compassion towards their life story, which will make them less angry and make them actually see more eye to eye with you. And then you can actually get into a conversation. And but if everybody did that, then we wouldn't have a problem with like conflict resolution. Like there it is. Just say, like, you hurt, my feelings are hurt, but it's my feelings and from my own perception. Was that what you intended? To me, right? Then you listen. You just shut up and listen.
Beautiful. Andy, thank you so much. I really acknowledge you for the openness to look at the origin story. My intention was to use your experience as a teaching moment. And I really appreciate you being willing to go there, and then also at the end of it, also see that, hey, it's user error, user intent as well as the designer intent, and you can see it from that way. Really appreciate the masterclass around, how media industry, the machinery is run and how this could potentially be weaponized with more AI and why we need to be more cognizant about our awareness, how we're being influenced. And, just really appreciate everything that you do. Frequency as medicine is a beautiful articulation and I love it. I can't wait to experience it personally. I'm a big fan of sound healing. I see a lot of potential, as we talked about, with the possibility of that immersion. Anyways, we can nerd out with a few more hours. All in all, just really appreciate you being who you are and taking your expertise in doing something good in the world. Thank you so much for being here on Noble Warrior.
Thank you. And thank you for everything you do. And to your listeners for everything they do. And it's been an honor.